Welcome back. I'm Aaron Bernstein, and we're going to get started on chords. This lesson is all about triads, the simplest type of chord in tonal music, 3 notes. Now we're going to be talking a lot about half steps and about thirds. So if you feel like you need to brush up on those, please visit the Fundamentals module and see these videos. All right, now before we go in deep, we want to get familiar with how chords are spelled. Triads, like all other chords, always skip letters. So if A is the note you're building your chord on, you want to skip letters up to C and then skip again up to E. And that's how you'd properly spell a triad starting on A. If you're starting on E, you want to skip letters up to G and then skip again up to B. So practice this with a lot of different letters on the bottom, and once you get really fluent, you're well on your way. All right, we'll come back to that later on in the lesson. While melody is the idea of consecutive notes through time, harmony is what's happening simultaneously. So on the music staff, melody fills up the horizontal dimension, and harmony is everything vertical. And we begin our study of harmony with its basic building block, the third. As you know, thirds are formed by skipping notes, C to E or D to F. The reason thirds are so fundamental to Western harmony is because if you stack one third on top of another, you get a chord, the triad. Triads are the core of the harmonic vocabulary that we'll learn to use, so as you can imagine, there's more than one kind. Let's harmonize this well-known tune. If you felt like those triads helped the music along, pushing things toward the end, you've got the idea. Harmony's job, at least in the Western format, is to create a sense of movement. Some triads are calm and stable sounding. Some are tense, wanting to resolve. In a moment, we'll find out how to create these different chord personalities. Let's build a triad on the note C. We'll start with white keys only. Put an E on top of that C, and that makes a third. Then put a G on top of the E, and we have another third. So triads consist of a third on the bottom and another third on top. And notice how the overall interval from bottom to top is a fifth. So the note we've built this triad on is called the root. The middle note we call the third, being a third above the root. And the top note is the fifth, as it's a fifth above the root. Later on, we'll see these notes arranged differently, but for now, the root is on the bottom, or in the bass, and we say that this triad is in root position. And root position triads have either all line notes or all space notes. Remember, triads are made from thirds, or skips, and line to line, or space to space, is a third. Last, before we move on, this is how a triad looks if it's made from whole notes. But you could also have a triad with half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and so on. There's just one stem for all 3 notes. Now, as we heard a moment ago, there are actually 4 different types of triad, and we're going to learn how to make them. Let's zoom in on these thirds. The bottom third spans 4 half steps. Starting on C, 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps up to E. So C to E is 4 half steps, and that's called a major third. Now look at the third on top. That one spans only 3 half steps, starting on E, 1, 2, 3 half steps up to G. So E to G is 3 half steps, and that's called a minor third. So this particular triad has a major third on the bottom and a minor third on top. And this is how it sounds. This is a major triad, bright and cheerful sounding, and this one is called C major, named for its root note, C. All right, now we'll look at our next triad, the minor triad. And we only need to make one small change to the major triad to get it. We're going to take the middle note, E in this case, and move it down a half step to E flat. And now the bottom third has 1, 2, 3 half steps, so that's now a minor third on the bottom. And the top third has 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, giving us a major third on top. So these two thirds have simply exchanged places. Major triads have the major third on the bottom, minor third on top. Minor triads have the opposite, minor third on the bottom and the major third on top. And they sound like this. Very somber and grim. 2 more triads to go. For the next one, we just change one note on our minor triad. Take the 5th of a minor triad and lower it a half step. So here G becomes G flat. This turns the top third into a minor third. 1, 2, 3 half steps. So now we have 2 minor thirds, top and bottom. This is the diminished triad. If you could express confusion or anger as a sound, this chord would do the job. Okay, one more. Let's go back to the major triad. Take the 5th of a major triad and move it up a half step, so G becomes G sharp. Now our top third is a major third. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. Same as the bottom third. This is the augmented triad. It has almost a train whistle quality, and like the diminished triad, is rather tense. So those are the 4 kinds of triad. Let's do a quick review. Triads are built from major and minor thirds. A major third has 4 half steps, minor thirds have 3. The major triad has a major third on the bottom, minor third on top. The minor triad, just the opposite. Minor third on the bottom, major third on top. The diminished triad has 2 minor thirds, and the augmented has 2 major thirds. And that's it. Now, one final thing to watch for, correct note spelling. The thirds that triads are built from always skip letter names. If you build a triad on E, the spelling has to be E, G, B, regardless of any sharps or flats. So let's create all 4 types of triad on E. Start with E major. Our bottom third has to be a major third. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps to G sharp. Then our top third is a minor third. 1, 2, 3 half steps up to B. And there's E major. Now to get E minor, simply move the third, the middle note of the major triad, down a half step. Now the bottom third is a minor third. 1, 2, 3 half steps. And the top third is major. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. E, G, B. That's E minor. Next, an E diminished triad. Take the 5th of the minor triad, the top note, and lower it down a half step. Now both the bottom third, 1, 2, 3 half steps, and the top third, 1, 2, 3 half steps, are minor thirds. Notice how we kept the original letter name spelling. The top note has to be called B flat, not A sharp. And finally, the augmented triad. Start with the E major triad, and move the 5th, the top note, up a half step. Now we have 2 major thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps on top. And once again, we kept the original letter name spelling. The top note has to be called B sharp. We can't call it C. And if you liked that example, you're going to love this one. Let's build a diminished triad on A flat. Now, before we worry about half steps, major and minor thirds, and all that, let's be clear about letter names. The root is A flat, so no matter what, the letters have to be A, C, and E. Spelled like thirds should be, and we can't change them. Okay, this is a diminished triad, so we build 2 minor thirds. 1, 2, 3 half steps up from A flat would be C flat. We're stuck with the letter name C, so we can't call this note B, no matter how tempting it is. Now buckle up, because our top minor third is 1, 2, 3 half steps up from C flat. We have to use the letter name E, and this is E double flat. No kidding. And this way we have all 3 notes spelled as thirds. Of course, we could enharmonically rename this chord as G sharp diminished, and the spelling would be much easier on us. G sharp, B, D. But if you want to call the root A flat, then this is how you have to spell it. I know, I feel your pain. Okay, that last one was a bit extreme, but you will encounter spellings like that in real chords. So, when you're trying to build a chord on any note, first step, forget about half steps, forget about major and minor thirds, sharps and flats, and just figure out your letter name spelling. When you've got it, those are the letters you're stuck with and you can't change them no matter what. Step 2, add major or minor thirds on top depending on what triad you're trying to build. And finally, add any sharps or flats as needed, once again keeping the letter names unchanged. All right, we're all done. So I've got plenty of worksheets for you to get some good practice on this. And just remember, like anything else in music theory, this just takes time. Practice it a lot and you'll get good at it, I promise. I'm Aaron Bernstein, and I'll see you later.